you'll still get your full 2 hours credit, and you'll see how I'm going to justify that at the end. All right, let's do this. Thanks, guys. This is just a little thank you, a great video. I hope that will build y'all up.
All are game changers. What you do every single day, the service that you put in every single day is changing more lives than you know. That's probably the most frustrating thing about being an educator is you sacrifice and you give so much to these kids, but many of them, when they leave your school or they leave and go to the next grade, you don't get to see them 5 years later. You don't get to see them when they graduate from high school or when they get accepted to college or when they get married or when they have their first child. I wish so bad that I could find those teachers, those few teachers who saw something special inside me when everyone else wrote me off. Man, if I could just find those few teachers and say, thank you, look at me now. I own a home. I've got a few businesses, a nonprofit. I've written a bunch of books. I got a bunch of degrees because of you. But they're not here, and I can't find them. But I can tell you, because of the sacrifice that you make every single day coming to this school, because of teachers and educators and administrators like you that speak life, because of people like you, our country has a fighting chance. This new generation has a fighting chance. And these kids are going to go to a whole nother level. But that can only take place when we live a life of service, when we live lives of making solutions, and we live lives of sacrifice. You know, one of the number one messages I share when I go to schools, and I'll be honest with you, nowadays when the school calls me and they like, man, we want you to come and speak to our kids. I don't mind speaking to the kids, but more than anything, I want to speak to the teachers, the staff. Because if I can put this thing inside you, you now can give it to the kids and continue to reinforce it. So when I sit down now with the teachers, I do what I do with them, and when I get with the kids, you know what the number one thing I tell them is? Is that your teachers are human, just like you. Think about it. You can get diagnosed with something. You get that phone call. You're dealing with financial strains. I know, because you overworked and you underpaid. You got marital issues within your home. You suffer from depression, but you come to school every single day and you say, I'm going to leave this in my car because I've got to give my best to these kids. That's what next level teaching is. That's that next level education right there. And you can only do that if you every single day you say, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice me for these kids.
Sorry, I need to add that Vivian and Kayla are on. Oh, Lord, y'all. It says your internet connection is unstable. So this is what we're going to do. If we have mess ups, unless you can't even hear me, let's just let it go this time, because it will be recorded. And whenever I go back, the sound will be present. I just had to do it at Kitty Corner instead of my house today because of baseball. All right, guys, let's move on. So this training, I ordered this book, and the reason I ordered it is it was one of the top rated books on Amazon for emotions of children. And the coolest part is it came out of Chattanooga. And so I bought it. It's a little book. And I have went through the book, and that's what you're going to see today. This stuff, it's basically the same thing we've been learning, but it's a different view. It's a different view. No, it's not a different view. It's a different way to look at it. And it really got to me. The book's called Flooded, and it's a brain-based guide to help children regulate their emotions. Why are we doing another emotional behavioral training? It's working. I have people talking about the changes they've made in their classroom on a weekly basis. Some of these teachers that are talking about it are teachers that have been doing this all their lives, 40 years or more, or maybe a little less. But I know you guys know from all the trainings we have been doing how hard it is for someone who has been doing something for that long one way to step back and say, okay, I'll give this stuff a try and go into it with an open mind. And if any of those people are on here today, I just want to say you're an outlier. You are what the world needs more of and what the kids need more of. I appreciate everyone who tries this stuff. Our younger teachers, they're just coming and they're learning. And I think it's wonderful that we can start them out this way rather than the ways that could have been hurtful to kids. But I just shout out to you guys who have been doing this all your lives, and you're starting to look at research and brain development for the first time. It's a really big deal to be a lifelong learner. And we have a lot of lifelong learners here. It's the core of the program, in my opinion. Again, it comes out of Chattanooga and is the reason that we're doing it. So we're going to get right into the content. The brain's primary job is to keep us alive. That is why God designed us with a brain. So the book uses this comparison, okay? When we lived in a cave back in caveman days, if we heard a sound and we just ignored it, we could be killed by an animal. Today, we are living in homes with security systems. We have a phone to call 911, doors and windows and everything that we need. However, our brain still thinks we're in a cave. So our brain is still just trying to keep us alive. It's always alerted us to danger since the moment we were created, but our environment has changed. However, our brain is still primal. Here's a simple way to explain the brain. Why do we lose control of our emotions?
Kids want to know. Imagine that you really want to play soccer at lunchtime, but when the bell rings, you can't find your shoes. When you finally get out to the field, the teams have been picked and it's too late for you to play. Maybe you got so mad that this small problem became a big problem in an instant. When we lose control of our emotions like this, we can call it flipping your lid, kind of like the way a pot might do if it was too full and too hot. A little while later, after you've cooled down, you might even feel sad when you realize that when you had a big reaction to a little problem, you could have hurt someone's feelings. What if I told you that this happens to everyone? Your parents, friends, teachers, and everyone else you know can flip their lid and lose control of their emotions sometimes. We all need to work on managing our feelings. Have you ever wondered why we can have such a hard time keeping our emotions under control? It can be really tough being a kid these days. There's just so much going on every day, at home, at school, even after school. Sometimes it's hard to keep a lid on things, and we act in ways that are not kind or caring, even though we don't mean to be hurtful. There are so many situations that we encounter every day that can cause our emotions to bubble up. Maybe you felt upset or frustrated when you were working on a problem or activity at school and just can't seem to get it right. Maybe something unexpected or embarrassing happened to you in front of your friends. Maybe you had something important to say, but didn't get a chance to say it. These and many, many more situations can cause both kids and adults to flip their lids. So why does this even happen? Well, it has to do with the way our amazing human brains work to help keep us safe. This is your brain, the part of your body that controls everything you do. Let's take a closer look at the parts of the brain and how they can work together to help us keep a lid on things. The brain is a pretty complicated organ, so we're going to use our hand to help us visualize what's happening up there. Let's imagine that our brain has an upstairs and a downstairs. Here, where our thumb is called the midbrain. This is where our emotions and memories are created and stored. Below that is your brainstem. The brainstem controls the things our bodies do that we don't have to think about, like breathing. It also controls our automatic reactions to certain situations. For example, if you touch a cup with hot tea in it and it's too hot, your downstairs brain feels the pain and will pull your hand away to stop you from getting burnt. It's an automatic reaction. You don't have to stop and think about what to do. Or imagine you're out on a hike and a bear wanders onto the path. Your brain doesn't stop and think, what kind of bear is it? Is it friendly? Your downstairs brain notices that you feel scared. It takes charge and in a split second decides whether or not you should fight, fly, another word for run away, or freeze. Because of the way our downstairs brain reacts to these situations, we can think of it as our emotional brain because it reacts instantly without needing to think things through. It's always ready to take charge in any situation to help keep you safe. So if this is our downstairs brain, then this part where the back of our hand and fingers are can be seen as our upstairs brain. It's called the cerebral cortex. This part of our brain helps us think logically, act with kindness, and think about how others might be feeling. It's also the problem-solving part of our brain. It helps us to think of possible solutions to a problem and decide which one is best. The upstairs brain is our thinking brain. Your upstairs and downstairs brain don't work alone. Your brain is set up so that the upstairs and downstairs brain can communicate with itself. It sends messages from section to section all the time about what our bodies feel and need. Let's take a closer look at our brain fist. Where our fingertips are is the logic and reasoning part of the brain that springs into action when we have a problem to solve, and usually it does a great job of doing it. But sometimes it can have a hard time solving a problem if the emotional brain and thinking brain can't communicate well enough. This can happen if your emotions get too overwhelming and your downstairs brain decides that this situation might be dangerous, even if it isn't really. And we all know what happens when our downstairs brain thinks you're in danger. It triggers our fight, flight, or freeze reflex. Our emotions start to bubble up, and then suddenly everything boils over. We flip our lids. This can look like a scary, angry reaction, or it might be crying or running away from a problem. Now that we've flipped our lids, see how far away our fingertips are from the midbrain? When our lids are flipped, our upstairs and downstairs brain can't talk to each other. Our emotions have become too strong and we can't think clearly and can't solve the problem in a peaceful way. So what can we do to stop us from flipping our lid? Well, it all starts with realizing that we're about to flip our lid and then turning down the heat so it doesn't happen. Remember that soccer game we talked about at the beginning of the video and you were really upset and didn't get to play? Maybe you felt your tummy rumble or you felt your face getting hot? Did your heart start to pound, and did you feel your hands start to clench? Were you frustrated, disappointed, and angry? These types of strong feelings are all indicators that you might be close to flipping your lid. If you feel this start to happen, it's a good idea to walk away, take some deep breaths, and look for an adult to talk to before you flip your lid. It might be a parent, grandparent, coach, teacher, or another trusted adult nearby. They can help you with strategies to solve the problem once you've calmed down enough for your upstairs brain to be ready to do some peaceful problem solving. If you do flip your lid, those same trusted adults can offer you some time and space to cool down before you start to problem solve together. Once your upstairs brain is back in charge, you can share your story and get some help. Using I statements can help you to tell an adult what you need. I need a hug. I need you to listen to what I have to say. I need another chance. I need some alone time. I need a walk. I need you to see that I can do well. Learning more about the brain and how it works can really help us to understand our emotions and to be peaceful problem solvers. When we listen to our bodies and our brains, we can turn the challenges of being a kid into opportunities to learn and grow. Thanks for watching.
Okay, I got you, Penny. So the reason I played that kid video is I know that one was a little long, but I think that we need to let kids know about this. I actually, after I created this, I talked to Ella about the bottom brain and the top brain and explained that process to her. I don't think it's ever too young to start teaching them that their brain controls everything. So I encourage you guys to do that. Okay.
If you're interested,
So the amygdala, we have brought it up a couple of times, but it's a real important part of being an early childhood teacher. It's just a small place in our brain. If you took a pin and put it through your eye and your ear at the same time, wherever those meet, that's where our amygdala is, on left and right. The amygdala's purpose is safety. Now, it alerts us to all other kinds of emotions. It's not just fear. But what I've learned is fear is the one that has been studied the most. So we're still discovering a lot of things about the amygdala. But whereas, happiness, doing brain scans and all of these things, when someone's happy, are they really happy? Are they not? It's not as easy to study, but fear is an easy thing to study. So that's why there's so much about fear, but our amygdala alerts us. Sometimes though, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this. Sometimes what happens is it senses things like being left out, going up to bat, if you're playing a baseball game, before you take a test, making a shot in basketball, what they call good stress, eustress. The amygdala will get confused and think that you are really in a state of fear. And so that is what anxiety is. It's that amygdala thinking that you're in danger. And I thought I saw this quote in the book, like my amygdala, suddenly I'll be sitting outside on a sunny Sunday, and all of a sudden my amygdala thinks I'm in fear and I start sweating and I go into full panic attack. Why? I have an overactive amygdala. That's actually the definition of anxiety.
We've all had those moments when we let our emotions take over, and we did something that we later regretted. We end up saying, I can't believe I did that. What was I thinking? The amygdala is one of two almond-shaped brain structures located deep in the brain that helps you recognize and respond to threats. Our amygdala protects us from harm by receiving information from the world and quickly scanning our memories to see if the information presents any threat. If the amygdala senses danger, it acts like an emergency alarm and quickly begins the fight, flight, or freeze response, way before the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of the brain, has time to overrule it. Once activated by a perceived threat, the amygdala causes adrenaline and cortisol to be released from the adrenal glands, located right above our kidneys, which leads to increased heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing. You may experience a racing heart, shaking, sweating, tense muscles, and nausea as this happens. Blood leaves the prefrontal cortex, where we make good decisions, and instead goes towards the amygdala and major muscles in preparation for a fight, flight, or freeze response. Because we lose conscious control of our thinking brain and our ability to make good decisions, this is often referred to as an amygdala hijack because the emotional brain takes over the thinking brain. We know too well that negative emotions can drive us to make some really bad decisions we'll regret later. This is a good thing in times of real danger. If there's a fire happening in your house, you don't want to be thinking, I wonder what might have caused this fire. Instead, you want to respond as quickly as possible, so think of this as a safety mechanism, kind of like a reflex to protect you from danger. However, this amygdala hijack response can be dangerous to us in times where we feel threatened by minor things that might not be a matter of life or death, like someone insulting you, feeling stress from an exam, or public speaking. because we can lose our ability to think effectively. Not only are you more likely to make bad decisions that hurt yourself and others, but staying constantly stressed by minor things can lead to high blood pressure, diabetes, depression, obesity, a weak immune system, and even diseases. So how do we regain control of our thinking brain and turn off the amygdala response? Stay tuned to find out. So to recap, the amygdala is a brain structure that lets us know if there is a threat in our environment. The amygdala protects us from danger by shutting off the thinking brain and allowing us to respond quickly to threats. This is called the amygdala hijack because the thinking brain is taken over by the emotional brain. When activated in minor situations that are not life or death related, we can make bad decisions that we'll regret since our thinking brain has been hijacked. Constant amygdala activity where we're in a state of fear or stress is dangerous to our health in so many ways. We'll learn how to calm down your amygdala and regain control of our thinking brain.
Okay. That's where we're going to go through.
We've
that
all had those
ourselves.
moments.
Okay. This training really helps me as an adult more, but relate it to the kids too, because they go through the same thing. So what happens, the reason it's called flooded, is blood leaves the top part of our brain, the thinking part. All the blood, when we sense danger or fear, it rushes to the back of the brain, to the amygdala, to the limbic system, because boom, we need to fight, which could be a child who curses or throws chairs, or an adult. We got to fight, laying out of school, avoiding confrontation by just agreeing with what someone says, or we got to freeze. That's when you have kids. Britton does this. He when he gets stressed, he's like, huh, what? And he can't focus. And it's almost like his intelligence goes down. Now I know why. All the blood leaves and goes back here to protect him. Your pupils dilate during these times, so more light enters the eye and you can see better. Your skin can become pale in anxiety-ridden times because blood moves to those muscles and the back of the brain, the legs and the arms to prepare you to fight. Because our brain doesn't think we're up speaking. It thinks it's primal. It thinks a tiger's chasing us. You get the rapid heartbeat and breathing because your body is filling with energy and oxygen so you can be able to respond. Oops, what's happened here? Sorry, guys, I messed that one up. So we are now flooded. When those things happen, that's when flooding occurs. Flooding is all of that blood going to the primal part of your brain. So we're in the flood zone now. There's no blood left at the top of the brain. You can no longer think, manage emotions, or trust yourself to do the right thing. On an emotional scale of 1 to 10, flooding occurs at about an 8. From 1 to 7, you can still use coping strategies. You can breathe and do sensual things to lower it rather than to hit flooding. It occurs in adults as well as children, but with the kids, it often happens because their brains aren't even capable of rationalizing or coping. Okay, so they don't have the skills like, okay, I need to take deep breath to calm myself to get back to a 6 rather than move to a 10. They just don't have the skills. That's why we're there to teach them. This is what flooded children say. Oh, stupid. Oh, I don't care. I don't know. I'm so stupid. Nobody even likes me. Well, it's not my fault. Sound familiar? Naturally, we want to contradict their feelings and say, no, you shouldn't feel like you're stupid. You're super smart. But it goes back to meeting those kids where they are. At the moment, they think they're stupid. So instead of trying to rationalize with a child that you can't rationalize with because they're number one, flooded, and number two, underdeveloped. That's why the first step to conscious discipline, to the flooding theory that we're going through right now, all of those, the first step is what? Acknowledge how the child feels. Name the emotion and acknowledge it. Don't say you're stupid. That's not true. You repeat that emotion. You do not feel like you care about school right now. That work made you feel frustrated. What's going on? Okay. We know a child that is flooded when what they are doing will not get them what they want, but instead gets them the opposite of what they want. So I go through this all the time, every day, and y'all do too. They started out trying to get what they wanted, and they're trying to have good behavior to reach this goal that they want, but instead it ends up getting them the opposite of what they want, and that whether that be a timeout or in trouble. So that's a good way to recognize somebody's flooded. They will not take responsibility. They refuse to apologize, exaggerate, blame themselves, or shut down. Hitting, kicking, biting, yelling. These kids are flooded. They can't think rationally. So we got to go about it in a different way. Now, this is the problem. Say this kid's flooded and it floods us too. Us adults get so upset by the way the kids acting or treating us that all of our blood goes into fight flight mode and goes back to the back of the brain. And we can't be there for the child and help them get themselves calm because we're flooded as well. Flooded adults, this is a clue to know if you're flooded. They give extreme consequences. They refuse to listen. They'll yell. You'll hear harsh tones in the classroom. They like to threaten children and then manipulate them. So these would be a sign that you are not supplying the thinking part of your brain with oxygen and blood. What determines our chances of flooding? Actually, genetics. Some are more prone. 50% of your mental health is what you come into the world with, your genetics. And 50% is what happens once you're here, your experience, your environment. You know, tons of debates go on and on. No, it's 40% and 60%, da 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 da. But in general, 50 genetics, 50 experiment. I used to think that we were 60% what happened to us after we were born and 40% genetics. The more that I've lived, I believe it could even be that genetics controls even higher than 60%. That's just living through my own observations, no science. Keep in mind that beautiful discovery by Bruce Perry, though. With a strong supportive environment, people can bury genetics. We've been through all that in that brain training. And if you're new, you can go to YouTube to the KKDC trainings. And that very first brain training talks all about that. We can bury bad genetics. But it goes both ways. If you're born with a mental illness and have an unstable family or experience, and a lot of ACEs, remember that we all have to do our ACEs trainings, you're going to have a more difficult time maintaining your mental health, obviously. So the adverse childhood experiences, this is the chart and what they are. Abuse, physical, emotional, and sexual. The neglect category, you've got physical, emotional, and violent ACEs. And then they have dysfunction, where you would have mental illness, an incarcerated family member, substance abuse, and divorce is one of them, which is interesting. So, you know, when you're dealing with these kids, think about how many ACEs do they have currently? because that really takes a lot of their chances of overcoming away. All right, just a quick little image to help you see. This is a healthy brain. The red parts are the highest functioning. Let me see if I can move this. Okay, yeah. Then yellow, green, purple, and then black is non-active. This is a healthy brain. This is an abused brain. So that right there, science, guys. So you're dealing with some kids that have no activity in a lot of these parts. Pretty disturbing picture, huh? When you have repeated incidents of abuse, you have an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex and the cortex that controls emotional regulation, and an overdeveloped amygdala. That amygdala that we talked about that sends us into fight, flight, or freeze. The active and developed part of their brain is the bottom brain. We've talked about that, the limbic system. The bottom brain is breathing, fighting, eating, staying alive. And then in school, children need to operate from the top of their brains, right? We need our thinking brain going on. But when children live in survival mode constantly, their brains develop differently. So they have a better chance of surviving, right? Their brain, they're hungry all the time. They don't feel safe, these children in rough homes. Most of their development is going to be limbic system, the stuff that helps us survive, and not up here. And that goes back to that picture, that we saw. I don't want to say that, I hear people say, well, he knows better, she knows better. I don't know, man. Whew, the brain is a scary thing. Okay, this is cool. I worked with a boy who exhibited violent behaviors at school. He was only a first grader, but he had already been sent to a psychiatric center twice. He was on several medications, and he had been diagnosed as bipolar. He had been suspended from school multiple times. He had been throwing chairs in the classroom, biting teachers, scaling the backstop of the playground, spitting, cussing, and refusing to obey. I felt completely unprepared to work with this boy. I had no idea how to help him manage his behaviors and emotions. So I did the only thing I knew to do, be a safe person for him. Each time I met with him, I strived for my demeanor to say, I see you, I hear you, I accept you. Over time, it made a difference. In seeking to understand what was going on in his emotional world, I asked him to draw a self-portrait. Below is the first self-portrait he drew. When I asked him to describe it, he said the red was anger inside, and the club-looking object sticking out to the right was his fist ready to hit someone. The blue inside was sadness, and he didn't want anyone to see. For the first time, this boy began to express vulnerability. He described the image he had drawn as a monster. He identified himself as a monster instead of a child. Although this was disheartening to hear, I fear that many other people in the school saw him the same way, a monster. Over the next few months, he began to open up to me. He said his mother was mean and that he wanted me to be his mom. He also said he was stupid and had no friends. I didn't argue with his beliefs about himself. I just sat with him in his feelings. During this time, I observed him being more interactive with his peers and saw violent outbursts diminish. He even reported school was okay sometimes. His teacher pulled me aside one day in the hallway with so much enthusiasm. He smiled. Today was the first time I've ever seen him smile, she said. Around January of that school year, he drew another self-portrait. These are excerpts from the book. I couldn't believe how much his view of himself had changed as he was beginning to see himself as a person. He let me know that he was still angry because the picture still had teeth, but this picture helped me know he was on the path to healing. A few months after this drawing, he revealed that his older brother was sexually abusing him. This led to a children's service report and removal of the brother from the home. This created additional trauma, and his home was dysfunctional and now being torn apart. Learning the abuse at home gave context for this boy's behaviors. He was functioning from the bottom of his brain each day. When he felt threatened at school, he responded by fighting, flighting, or freezing. He was a fighter. Bruce Perry, a trauma expert, says the more threatened you are, the more primitive you are in your behavior. We may be the only safe adult in some kids' lives. Their parents may not be safe, nor their siblings or relatives. They may not know what it's like to feel unconditionally loved or valued, and we may be the first person to show them. This process can take a while. It took over 6 months of 30-minute daily sessions for this boy in the above example to share his trauma. For some kids, it takes even longer. It's important to be patient in our work with kids. Sharing traumas and difficult experiences takes vulnerability, and for some kids, being vulnerable is just too scary. Now, realizing this lady worked with this boy for 30 minutes a day, and you're in the classroom with children like him for however long you are, and this could, if we switch to listening and hearing and respecting, this could bring out trauma even faster and changes in behaviors. We're going to look at 2 different kinds of flooding. This is flooded with cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. Whenever you have anxiety and all that, cortisol is the hormone that floods you. High cortisol causes anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. Hey, and I'm wrong here. It is that hormone, but also you can be born with too much cortisol. And this is the first time I've learned about this. As you're seeing these slides, think about your own kids, because I know which child I have that has more cortisol and which one that has more, the next that we're going to see, serotonin. All right, low self-esteem, obsessive thinking, or that what is it, my cup is half empty rather than half full. Now this is a weird one. When we have a lot of cortisol, flooded with cortisol, we have heightened memory, which seems like a good thing, but what it is, you remember everything because you are functioning from a place of alarm. So your brain picks up every little noise, right? Oh my gosh, is that a tiger? And it also remembers things better to protect you, to not have that mistake happen again. Those kids that are like, remember everything. Like 6 months ago, you told me that we would go to the beach, or you told me you'd buy me a pair of purple socks. Those kids, it's likely they have very high cortisol levels. At night, when our brain, this is another cool thing. At night, when our brain rushes through the day, the child or adult with high cortisol will struggle to fall asleep because their mind remembers everything, every little detail through the day for survival. And it repeats like all of these things to try to get it in your brain to keep you safe. So that can be a reason if you have a child that doesn't sleep well or you don't sleep well. Do you have high cortisol? All right. What can we do for these kids? Be like Jesus. That's what we can do. I hate school. I'm no good at it. No one likes me there. Oh no, you're great at school. Look how well you did on that test. You have lots of friends. No, I'm not. I probably failed that test and everybody hates me. Whew, sounds like one of mine. Instead, what these theories are suggesting is that you say, I'm sorry that you are feeling sad about school. Acknowledge that emotion. How can I help you? Doesn't that sound like, I mean, can you see Jesus being like, you are not hated. You are just so negative, kid. You know, can you see Jesus doing what some of the practices we use with these kids, and like it's just still back to the what would Jesus do, right? He would say, I'm sorry you're feeling sad about school. How can I help you? Wouldn't he? Change the expectations of a child and the child will meet it. This is another thing that they suggest. The disruptive students in your class should be expected to be the helpers. Why? Because those kids typically have the most influence over your class. So expect positive things from them. Erase what other teachers, we got a 2-year-old and we've got teachers saying, oh, he's the worst. This is what he's going to be. He's going to tear up your classroom and da 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 da. Erase that. Don't do that because your brain will start to believe that. You just deal with him in a different way. Let him be your helper. Expect positive, not bad from him, just like Jesus would. All right, and then we got people who are flooded with serotonin, which seems to be a good thing, right? The statistics of abused overcoming for themselves are pretty low. Those that do overcome it are outliers. They're the 2%. They are also blessed with a surplus of serotonin. This goes back to genetics, guys. Though serotonin, the feel-good hormone, helps us cope and see glasses half full, it also can cause very little worry. In children, this can show up as low motivation in school and sports. And with the push for success and competition today, we look at that as bad. But this is, Britton's here, but this is Britton. He has a lot of serotonin. He is, he's just like, so what? Didn't do good today. So what? He's just happy. And a lot of the times we look at that negatively, but is it negative? I don't know, but I can tell you it's a hormone. So we are always like, we have a choice. We always say that, right? And I guess to some extent we do. If the therapist works with us or we take medication or something like that. But with all this stuff we're learning about a surplus of cortisol, surpluses of serotonin, the I don't care hormone, all this flooding that we're learning about. I don't know. I don't know if these children 5 and under can choose to have a good day. I don't know. Think about it. I just now thought of that, guys. It's not part of the training. I'm wondering, the brain and genetics control so much. Oh, Lordy. All right. To reset the brain, flooding will last from 30 seconds to 30 minutes, depending on several things, depending on genetics and all that. So what we do not do is talk about the event that, you threw that chair, or your consequence is you got to clean all the chairs while they're flooded. All right. So we got to get them out of flooding before we can start making them not do it again. Blood starts to flow back to the top of the brain and is no longer flooded to wake up the brain when the five senses are stimulated. Music, calm voices, sounds of nature, belly breathing, essential oils, smells of nature, water, mints, food, clay, Velcro, grass, cold objects, sand outside, water table. These are the things that will let the blood slowly start going back to your thinking cap and get this child or you to a point where you can learn something about how to act next time. Also a different setting or a different view, comforting images like of a mama. So let us all be sure we have a space in our classrooms where children can reset and their brains can change. They can get all of that blood from back here from being so angry, start to go back to the thinking cap. But if we don't have that space, what's going to happen? Those kids can be flooded for up to 30 minutes and make your life, you know what. So be sure, check for it. That's your homework. Check and make sure that you have, snap a picture or whatever, that you have these things, or at least 3 or 4 of them, and that kids know when they're flooded, they can go to do these things or smell these things and come back to the classroom. Again, pre-K and school age, I think that they need to know that their brains can be flooded. Your brain has a bottom, middle, and top. This is simple, what you can tell them. Top is for thinking and making good choices. Bottom is to keep us alive. When you get upset, all that blood goes to the back of your brain. You can't think. And to get that blood back to thinking, this is what you can do. And then show them that list. Explain triggers to them, something that causes a bad or sad feeling. Talk to these kids, teach them about emotional health, teach them about the brain, not just ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. The goal, children who process inwardly will pull away and withdraw, and changes in behavior is the only way to tell if they are dealing with something. Right, so they're not going to come out. They're just going to start, well, you guys know the behaviors that you see in the classroom. That's, you don't know anything's going on in this kid's life except for their behaviors. You're like, yeah, something's going on. But the goal for this child would be him learning to say, hey, I'm struggling right now and I need some time alone to you. That's our goal. That's what we want to teach them. Outward processing children, their goal, the ones that talk nonstop about their problems, we all know those. The goal for that child would be saying, I'm so overwhelmed. Can we make a time, Miss Teacher, that you can sit down and listen to me? All right, we're finishing up here. 1 to 10, as we talked about, right? So all the way up to about 7, we're good. We can go back down. Once we hit 8, we're flooded and we got to reset. How do we reset? We use those things I talked about for our senses. So at 1, we're calm. My little meditator boy here, get this out of the way. And then about 3, we start to get a problem on the mind. This little guy right here is thinking a little. Then we start to worry, the nail biting, we can't think about anything else right now. Then about 7, we start to get sweaty. We start to have those symptoms, and boom, that's our last chance. That's when we start flooding, when those symptoms happen and we're triggered and we flood. All the blood goes, whoosh, okay? And at 10, we're like an ape. We do not have thought or reason anymore. We're like an ape. Okay. Come on, buddy. All right. So short and sweet, super informative. I hope you guys got it and understood it. You have an hour left. This is how I justify given 2 hours. Wait, don't go anywhere. I still have 29 participants. Don't go anywhere. Okay. I want you to go take your shoes and socks off, and I want you to ground. The wetter the grass, the better for you. That's something you can do for an hour. Go outside, unflood your brain, feel the grass, see if it makes a difference. You can also just research, type it into Google, whatever your problem is. I have a little boy that won't stop whining, whatever. Otherwise, just take this time that you set aside for this training for yourself. If you can't, I get it, because listen, I'm getting off of here. I'm going straight back to the ball field, feeding a bunch of kids and doing ball games all day. I get it. But just try to take your shoes off. Y'all say I'm funny and a tree hugger, but I swear it works. I do want to say one thing before I go. I think I made it clear at the beginning. I have discovered something while I've been here at Kitty Corner. My heroes, true heroes, are the older women who never stop learning, who never close their minds, who always strive to be better for themselves and for these kids. You guys are my heroes. And I know I'm getting, I say older women, I'm an older woman. But as I age, I just hope so much to be like you guys. Okay. All right, Kitty Corner, don't forget April the 30th, I think, or maybe the 31st, I'll send out an invite. We're doing an autism training. Jessica Anderson is going to be on to talk about early intervention. It's going to be a great training. Mark it in your calendars. If you guys could, I wish we could get 150 on here, really. I think my max is 200. All right, so I'm going to get your names, guys. Make sure I didn't have another slide. I do not. All right. Stay put. I'm going to name off your... Okay, I have Alex, I have Amanda, I have Barb, I have Blake, I think I have Brianna, I have Carrie, I have Emily, and my iPhone's Megan. Okay, I've got you down, Penny, and Vivian with Kayla. I've got you down, Miss Janine, Jennifer, Jessica Anderson, and Garrett. And do I have Miss Jordan? That was one I'm missing. I got you down, Jordan. Got you down, Keisha. I've got Kim and Alina. Adding Miss Christy Clear right now. Miss Christy, I hope you have a good weekend. There's Miss Kyanna. I'm writing you down right now. I have Lindsay Frost. There's Maddie. I got you, Maddie. I got both Melanie Gerber and Melanie Goldstein. I have Morgan Pedigo. Thanks for being on, Morgan. Welcome to Kitty Corner. Miss Rose, I have you. Sarah Corbin, have you. If I've named your name, you can sign off, guys. Miss Sarah or Sierra, I have you, Pumpkin. And Miss Tanya, I have you. Thanks, ladies. I'll have it posted as soon as all this baseball drama is over with and it downloads, okay? And you please encourage your staff to watch it, because I will give them 2 hours. And I have a message. Can you send me a screenshot of the pre-K school age slide, please? I will, Melanie, when I will. Okay. Have a great weekend. I forgot. No, I didn't forget you, Kyan. I got you. My voice might have cut out. Okay. All right, bye, Yuns. Melanie, I'll send you a screenshot.